Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and RareGem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at OneRareGem.com. That's OneRaregem.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm learning about your work in helping women successfully transition into healthy lives from the correctional system that is critical to the health of our overall community and to those that you serve. Today we are joined in the studio by Tricia Roland-Hamilton and Celeste Smith of Magdalene St. Louis.
This house will be home to between 9 and 11 women who have experienced significant trauma in their lives. They have histories of early childhood sexual abuse, drug addiction, substance abuse, prostitution, violence, and life on the streets. And this is a place that they'll call home.
Part of what we believe is that what makes the Magdalene model different is community. So we think that women need access to good medical care. They need access to substance abuse care and mental health care and dental care and all those things that our community is busy working on. But what's different about the Magdalene model is that we were really committed to developing a community, a place where women can feel connected to each other, can love each other, and feel safe to do the healing that they really need and want to do.
We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Rosetta, and I am a patient advocate, sometimes called the patient ombudsman with St. Louis Regional Health Commission. And basically, what that means is that I am there to help those people who are having problems navigating a system, understanding the system, getting what they need through the system, the healthcare system, because there are many ombudsmen and I'm a healthcare ombudsman. What that means for me personally is that I get the satisfaction of helping and my passion fighting for the underdog.
You don't have to face your challenges alone. Help is available. There are people who care. It's their passion. It's their calling. And you can find them with resources you need and tips to help you thrive on our portal. It's great to be alive. Be alive and well. Visit aliveandwellstl.me.
What is your vision for Alive and Well, given the work that you are called to do in this community?
I think one of the things that Alive and Well is helping us teach the community and helping us learn over and over is that asking the question, what's wrong with you, isn't the way, that it's asking what happened to you. And so we practice that in our work sort of day to day microscopically, and then hope to repeat that over and over again in the community. So when we are talking with our women, we know it's about what happened to you. What did she survive? What did she live through? What are all the ways that she has been hurt? And then how do we do that differently? How do we show her love and respect and trust and help her believe that when we say that we're going to do something, that we're going to do it? And when we ask her what she wants, that we care and we listen. And we think that's what trauma-informed work means on that individual life level, but it's also what's going to happen in our community as Alive and Well, is that we're going to listen to each other and be responsive to what people want and need.
Alive and Well STL.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, host of Alive and Well STL and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission. Today we are joined in the studio by Tricia Roland-Hamilton, Executive Director of Magdalene St. Louis, and Celeste Smith, Program Director of Magdalene St. Louis. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having us.
As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm really pleased to be speaking with both of you. I'm learning about your work in helping women successfully transition into healthy lives from the correctional system that is critical to the health of our overall community and to those that you serve. We're very eager to jump right in today. So before we get started, I'm hearing that there's some good news already that you need to share with the community about Magdalene House. Tell us about your efforts.
Well, we'll talk about the house first then. We purchased our house a year ago this month and started renovations in October. We're doing a $700,000 renovation to a home in Old North St. Louis, about a block and a half from Crown Candy Kitchen. We are about 6 weeks away from opening our doors, so the finishing touches are happening as we speak.
And what's the purpose of the house? What will it bring to the community?
This house will be home to between 9 and 11 women who have experienced significant trauma in their lives. They have histories of early childhood sexual abuse, drug addiction, substance abuse, prostitution, violence, and life on the streets. And this is a place that they'll call home.
You've talked about it being home and not a house. So what are the elements, and I'll ask it to either of you, that make this house a home for women who will be coming through those doors?
Part of what we believe is that what makes the Magdalene model different is community. So we think that women need access to good medical care. They need access to substance abuse care and mental health care and dental care and all those things that our community is busy working on. But what's different about the Magdalene model is that we were really committed to developing a community, a place where women can feel connected to each other, can love each other, and feel safe to do the healing that they really need and want to do.
So the name of this show and this movement is Alive and Well, as you know. And when I think about your clients who must have had, and you've already outlined a bit about traumatic experiences, what do you find is the hope in really creating a path to Alive and Well?
We're based on a model out of Nashville that's been around for about 18 years now. They have successfully graduated more than 150 women from their program. And so when I meet with these women, when I see these women, when I hear these women speak about their histories and about where they are now, it's overwhelming. They have a social enterprise called Thistle Farms, and they have 55 employees, all of whom are current residents or graduates of the program. Every component of this company, which did $1 million in sales last year, every component of the company is run by a graduate of the Magdalene program. So Director of International Sales, Director of all retail throughout the country, those who are participating in a shared trade alliance, it's all run by the women who have graduated this program and survived.
And part of what we think that means is that as folks develop some security in their basic needs, that they have shelter and food and good healthcare and services, they also have that connection to community, to folks who care about them, that wonder where they're going to bed at night and if they're waking up safe in the morning. And as that support system nurtures them, they grow to be healthier physically and emotionally, and they're able to be contributing members of society in a way that's far more than folks who aren't reoffending. That's folks who are really giving back and helping our community be a place that's nurturing and safe for the next folks coming off the street.
So based on what you've seen in Nashville, what kind of optimism or creativity does that give you in terms of what you think Magdalene St. Louis will be looking like?
The success rate for women who are clean, sober, and living productive lives after 2.5 years is just over 70%, which is almost unheard of, especially when you're talking about addictions to heroin and crack and the trauma histories that these women have survived. So that gives us great hope, and it gives many communities across the country great hope. There are several cities in our country who are replicating this model as we speak. In fact, we had visitors yesterday from Memphis who are trying to replicate the model there. So we're doing all we can to help other communities embrace this model and bring the model to their homes and their towns.
You just talked about having to kind of inform and connect with the neighbors around the house as well. So not only are you talking to and touching base with and changing the hearts and minds of those that will come to your home, but also the community. Can you talk about what that process has been like? How difficult, how easy, how it's evolving? I'd love to know more about that.
When we first went to look for our home, we looked in several neighborhoods, some of which were welcoming and some of which were not. And we found Old North St. Louis, and we found a building that we wanted to renovate. And I can't tell you the kind of support that we've received from this neighborhood has made it possible for us to do this work. When we had to get our zoning changed, residents and folks from the Old North Restoration Group came and testified on our behalf. They want us there. They welcome us there. When I speak at neighborhood meetings there, I don't get questions like, who are these women? And, you know, what are they going to be doing every day? And are they going to be out and about? What I get are people who stand up and say, hey, I do a little tuck pointing on the side. If you need any help, please let us know. Or I can paint. Call me in when you need a room painted. That's the kind of support that we're getting from this neighborhood.
Where do you think that's coming from, where you see such a difference in that kind of response there versus other communities? How can we replicate some of that?
I think it's being very upfront and honest about who we are and sharing some of the stories from our women. When you meet our women, they're like you and me. There's no difference there. They're like you and me. They've just suffered a lot more trauma than most of us. And so welcoming them into this neighborhood has been a very easy transition for us. And so we're very grateful for that.
I also think that in Old North, people who have been there for generations have stuck around because they were really committed to what their image of community was, that they weren't staying in a building because it looked pretty or it had fabulous values. They were staying in the building because it was part of a community. And then the folks who've moved to Old North did that for the same reason, that they wanted to be part of something that was growing and changing and revitalizing. So I would bet that the neighborhood sees us as sort of a reflection of them, right? That our women are learning and building an opportunity to grow just like the neighborhood is again.
I love that. Yeah, it's a reflection of us, and we can see ourselves in who we serve, which makes us more connected instead of disconnected.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of enthusiasm in this room and a lot of passion. I would love to encourage you to speak in your I voice and tell me what makes you get up in the morning, what drives you to do this work, what calls you to this mission of wanting to engage in this way.
So I've been a social worker for a lot of years, and I've worked on pieces and parts of the system. So I started my work out doing domestic violence and sexual assault work, and I did runaway and lockout work, and I did work in community mental health and in substance abuse. And all those are pieces of what our women either need right now or have lived through in their past. And I always felt like what I was doing was a Band-Aid or just a part of what she needed. And Magdalene is the first model that I've seen that was really enough, that pulled all of that together and saw people as really whole beings. And we believe that love is the most transformative force for social change in the universe. And to be able to get up every morning and say, I believe that love heals, is pretty amazing.
When I first started hearing the stories of the women in Magdalene and Nashville 3.5 years ago, it hurt my heart. I come from a bit of trauma myself early on in life, and I saw myself in them. And I was able to overcome. I had a support network, and these women don't. We are their support network. I also spent 13 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office, sort of on the other side of the system, and always believed in restorative justice as opposed to, continuing to lock people up over and over and over again. When you look at our women who have, on average, 70, 80 arrests on their record, something in our system is not working. This doesn't work. To keep putting them in jail, charging them fines, how do you think they're going to pay for them? Right? So for all of those reasons combined, I felt a pull. I felt a draw to work on this mission, and I feel grateful and blessed every morning when I get up and come and do this work.
So what is the gift that trauma-informed approach or lens gives? Have you done this work prior to including that type of approach or outlook to it? And how has it changed in terms of how you interact or the environment around you? What's the difference that's made when you really think about applying a trauma-informed lens to your work?
We started learning about the model in Nashville. And when they started, they weren't speaking trauma-informed language, but they were doing trauma-informed work. They just didn't name it that. And through the years, they've worked on naming what the trauma-informed work is and what the histories of childhood physical and sexual abuse were for 100% of the women who came through their program. So they really educated us from the beginning on what women's backgrounds were and why it was connected like that. I think the language of trauma-informed helps us explain in a really efficient way to the rest of the world what it is that we're talking about. To be able to
give me an example of the naming. What does it look like, or how does it work?
So to be able to say we are more interested in what happened to folks than what's wrong with them, that clear, simple sentence really changes the way people think. Because I say it's not particularly interesting to me what her diagnosis is. I'm not particularly interested in what you think isn't working about the way she's behaving right now. I'm way more interested in what she's been through and how we can help her live a different way.
One of the things that I hear repeatedly when I talk to the women who are either currently incarcerated or that we're interviewing in jail right now is, I'm not worthy. And so addressing that shame and that feeling of not being worthy, of being cared for, of being loved, is something that we are challenged with every day. Just yesterday, I spoke to a woman who's currently incarcerated at Chillicothe, and she cried. We talk to her every week, and yesterday she said, I just don't feel worthy of what you're going to be doing for us. And for us, it's about reinforcing that you are worthy. You're worthy, and we love you.
And I wonder how long it's been since she's heard that message.
Never in her life.
So I'm curious to know, is there significance in the word Magdalene in terms of Magdalene House? Is there a meaning behind that?
So I think that the story of Magdalene is about a woman who people put shame upon, and she moved through that shame in relationship. It makes me teary as I say it. So
yeah,
that we build a community that's about relationship and about moving past shame into honor and respect and love. So I think that's the significance.
Yeah. And people spoke up when she couldn't and defended when she couldn't until she could. And that, yeah, it's enough to make me teary as well. Absolutely. Is there anything in particular, I'm thinking about two audiences, one who will hear this story and feel it's very touchy-feely and emotional, which is nothing wrong with that. But how do you prove impact and prove outcomes to the audience who would like to look at your financials and look at the data? Do you collect data, or how does that work in your world?
So our movement is on a journey to understand how we measure that. What we know is that we save the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars for every woman who's able to come out of an institution, and with 2 years of pretty minimal cost support that we provide her housing and intensive case management. We also provide community, but community is effectively free, right? Community is about how we choose to treat each other. So what our costs are about the housing itself and about the intensive case management. From there, she's able to be independent for the whole rest of her life. And that's what Nashville has seen over and over again, is a short-term investment of 2 years has unmanageable outcomes that people over and over again are able to be more independent, to be more successful, to be more engaged in every aspect of community life.
Is there space for those women to come back post 2 years to connect or to continue to have and develop community, or what happens post 2 years?
There's an expectation. So women, the day they come in the door, are considered a sister for life. So folks who complete the 2 years are called graduates, and those graduates we need to come back. They can come back once a year if they live out of town and meet the new women and be nice and supportive. If they live in town, maybe they're at the house once a week for group. Maybe they're at the house more often. Maybe they're involved in the social enterprise, and the women who are working their 2 years see them daily. But that connection to people who have been successful and know what it means to be a survivor is really important.
Now, I think one of the things that I'd like for people to understand is that when women come to us, they've had no job training, very, very little education. So when they come out of the system over and over again, they turn to what they know, which puts them back into the system. So what we're able to offer is education. If a woman wishes to pursue a college education, we're in a position to be able to help her do that, to provide job training so that they don't have to go back to doing what they did in order to survive before. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge because, again, I'll go back to arresting, locking up, and then turning them out on the street so that they can reoffend because they don't know anything differently is not working in our system. The entire system needs to change, and we're working on those aspects as well. We've got to stop treating these women as criminals. They are victims.
Are there opportunities for you to take the information that you learn to do advocacy work on their behalf that does change systems and policy?
Yes. In fact, currently we're working with the mayor's office and the city councilor's office to rethink how we're approaching prostitution in our city, to acknowledge that these arrests don't work. Running them through the system doesn't work. And also to say, what about the guys? What about the men involved? What about these purchasers? And what we've come to learn is that while pimps can be very violent, more violence occurs to these women by the purchasers, the Johns, the purchasers of sex, who think that by handing over that money, they are entitled to do anything they want to these women's bodies. And so we're trying to change that mentality. Let's go after the demand. Let's provide services to the women. So that's what we're working on right now.
Wow. So is there any opportunity to do interventions at some point, not right now because the house just got built, I get that, but at some point in terms of systems change to prevent the need to have the inflow of women to come to Magdalene House? What is your strategy? You've talked a little bit about it, but kind of what is that 3, 4, or 5-pronged approach that you're maybe seeing happening in Nashville that we can replicate here for systems change?
So some of the things that Nashville's doing is Magdalene on the inside. So going into jails and prisons and starting this conversation about empowerment and community with women who are currently incarcerated. We think that gives those women an opportunity to come back out and be less likely to reoffend, even if they're not living in the home. So that's one thing that might be on the table later on. Another thing is a John School. So if we were to be interested in demand, we could have a John School for folks who get arrested. They could come to the John School of Station Adjustment, and in part of that program, they learn what are the consequences, that this is not a victimless crime, that this actually is someone who's a survivor of really terrible abuse and neglect, and that they're part of that abuse, and that paying for sex is not a voluntary act.
I say all the time that I've never met an 8-year-old girl who says, I want to grow up to be a prostitute. And helping men understand that what they're doing just perpetuates this cycle of victimhood. And so we think it could be a really amazing program here, and it's operational in a few other cities. So we've got a model to work with. We're not about shaming these men. That's not what we're about. So when I see a police department throw pictures online of men that they've arrested for soliciting prostitutes, that's not what we're about. I wouldn't want to see pictures of our women online. These are the women who are prostitutes. So it's not about shaming the men. It's about educating them. And in Nashville, in their John School, they have a 5% recidivism rate. Now, could be that these men just aren't getting caught again, but that's pretty significant if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Another thing that Nashville's doing is starting to work about what child abuse looks like, because child abuse is the root of what happens for our grown women. So being outspoken about child abuse, about neglect, about sexual abuse is part of how we speak to that history and how trauma in childhood affects adults.
So as we wrap up the show, I am most excited about seeing not only the intervention right now, because there's an urgency to speak to the right now needs of women, but the systems change and the prevention that can happen and changing the next generations of men and women, which is what it's going to take in neighborhood and in community happening at the same time. This is incredible. So we'll have a placeholder for you to come back to talk to us about what you learned and what's happening, and to bring one of the sisters here to begin to share what the journey is like in her own voice and in her own time. I'm really excited about that. And before we close, I'd like to give you the closing opportunity to be able to speak to an individual listening today, male or female, who doesn't feel worthy. Because I think worthiness is on both sides of this equation. Speak to that heart or that mind. What would you say to encourage them today?
So we want to remind you that every single human being has value and worth, and that we live right now in a really broken system that judges people and segregates people and pretends like each of us are differently identified and valued. And that's not the truth. The truth is that we are all equal. We all have value and worth. And you might have lived through some really hard, challenging, terrible things. And that means that you even more are worthy of love and support. And you even more deserve to be rolled back into the community and be part of us.
Well, with that, we wrap up another session of Alive and Well. Thank you for creating yet another path for our community to become alive and well on the show. And with that, in closing, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode. We look forward to speaking with you again next week. Thank you so much.
Alive and Well, STL.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved.
If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr. committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.